From the moment the documentary hit Netflix, people kept saying the same thing: Diddy ruined himself long before the police ever showed up. And honestly, that's exactly what it looks like. Because the biggest mistake in this entire saga didn't happen in a courtroom, it happened behind the scenes, way before the handcuffs ever clicked. See, in Diddy, The Reckoning, the Netflix documentary produced by 50 Cent, there's a specific piece of footage that changed everything. It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it was never supposed to be seen by the public, not by fans, not by critics, and definitely not by the man who ended up using it against him. That footage came from a photographer hired by Diddy himself, someone he paid to shadow him, film his every move, capture moments that were meant to stay private. Diddy trusted that cameraman with the most intimate parts of his life, at least, he thought he did. But somehow this personal visual diary didn't stay personal. It ended up in the hands of 50 Cent and his production company, becoming one of the centerpieces of the documentary that's now haunting Diddy from behind prison bars. And inside that footage lies the moment people believe Diddy crossed a line he could never step back over. In one heated phone call, the one now circulating everywhere, he's talking to his own attorney, a man who fought tooth and nail to keep him out of a lifetime behind bars. This wasn't some random lawyer. This was someone who, according to many, literally saved Diddy from spending the rest of his life in prison. Yet the moment the footage aired, everyone watching wondered the same thing. Why on earth would Diddy secretly record the very person who protected him? In that clip, his frustration boils over. He's ranting about the pressure, the battles, the back and forth with legal teams, almost sounding like a man drowning in his own chaos. And while the world watches him unravel, there's one detail that hits harder than anything he says. His lawyer had no idea he was being filmed. Imagine fighting for someone's freedom, taking the heat, winning their case, and then discovering that your private, privileged conversations were recorded without your knowledge and then surfaced publicly years later. That's not just a betrayal, it's a violation of one of the most sacred rules in the legal world: attorney-client trust. Even Mark Geragos, a massive name in law and someone who has represented Diddy for years, admitted that if a client secretly recorded him, he would be out of his mind furious. He even said the paranoia would be so intense that he once held meetings under freeway bridges just to make sure he wasn't being recorded. That's how deep this cuts in the legal world. So when viewers saw that scene, everything changed, because this wasn't about the documentary anymore. This wasn't about 50 Cent, this wasn't about the arrest. This was about loyalty, and the moment Diddy proved he didn't understand the meaning of the word. And yet this betrayal was only the beginning. Because what Diddy did next, the way he tried to fight back when he learned the footage went public, revealed an even darker truth about what was really going on behind the scenes. But the real shock came when Diddy tried to shut the documentary down and expose something he never wanted the world to know. Part 2 continues the unraveling. The moment the documentary dropped, Diddy and his team went into full panic mode. They weren't just frustrated, they were furious. According to people close to the situation, the discovery that the private footage made its way into 50 Cent's hands felt like a personal ambush. And Diddy's reaction wasn't calm, strategic, or calculated. It was defensive, it was angry, it was desperate. He immediately claimed that the footage was his, that he owned the rights, and that it shouldn't have been allowed in the documentary at all. His team began firing off legal threats behind the scenes, insisting the video was used without authorization. They wanted it removed, blocked, erased, anything to stop the world from seeing what was never meant to leave his personal vault. But here, where everything got worse for him. Because the real issue wasn't copyright, the issue was the act itself, secretly recording his own lawyer during some of the most delicate moments of his career. And when legal experts started talking about it publicly, the picture grew even uglier. See, the presence of a videographer in a private conversation destroys attorney-client privilege. It means everything said in the room could potentially be used as evidence because a third party was there. And if the videographer wasn't bound by a written agreement, which many believe didn't exist, then the footage didn't actually belong to Diddy at all. Copyright law is brutally unforgiving. If it's not in writing, it's not yours. People who have spent their entire careers in entertainment law said the same thing. If the photographer didn't sign a contract, he is the legal owner of everything he filmed. Meaning Diddy's attempt to shut it down wasn't just ineffective, it was legally hollow. But even that wasn't the part that shocked the public the most. The emotional blow came from what it meant morally. This wasn't a paparazzi moment, this wasn't an ambush, This was a man recording someone who fought to save his life, someone he should have trusted without question. And when Mark Geragos was asked how he would feel if he discovered a client had recorded him, his reaction said it all. He admitted it would shake him to his core, that it would feel like a violation of the most sacred trust in the legal world. He even described a phase where he became paranoid enough to only meet clients under freeway bridges because he was afraid of being recorded. That's how serious this kind of betrayal is. It's not just bad behavior. It's something that cuts deep into the foundation of attorney-client ethics. And for the lawyer who won one of Diddy's most important legal battles, the victory that potentially saved Diddy from spending decades in prison, this betrayal hit harder than any rumor or accusation. Because in the end, it wasn't just about a leaked video. It was about a man who seemed to value control more than loyalty, image more than honesty, and secrecy more than the people trying to protect him. The public began to question everything. If Diddy would record his own lawyer, who else did he secretly tape? What else did he hide? And what other footage is still out there? Those questions didn't just create drama, they created fear. And that fear became fuel for 50 Cent's documentary, turning it into something more powerful than anyone expected. But as the fallout grew, something even more shocking surfaced: details about the secret recording that could destroy Diddy's entire legal strategy. Part 3 reveals the truth behind those whispers, as the online storm intensified. People started digging deeper into the moment Diddy secretly recorded his lawyer, and that's when the truly unsettling details started surfacing. Because the more experts broke it down, the clearer it became that this wasn't some innocent behind-the-scenes moment. This wasn't a harmless documentary clip. This was a calculated move that could have demolished Diddy's entire defense if it had been discovered during the trial. The recording captured Diddy inside a private legal discussion, a meeting where strategies were being debated, decisions were being made, and personal frustrations were spilling out. Everything shared on that call was meant to be confidential, protected by one of the strongest legal shields in existence: attorney-client privilege. But that privilege evaporates if a third person is present. And in this case, not only was a videographer standing there, but he was actively filming. That means every word exchanged in that intense moment was vulnerable. It could have been used against Diddy, turned over to prosecutors, or weaponized in ways he never anticipated. People watching the documentary began asking the chilling question that lawyers dread. Did Diddy accidentally ruin his own legal protection the moment he allowed that camera in the room? Mark Geragos, who knows Diddy's legal world better than most, came close to confirming that fear. He couldn't speak directly for the attorney in the clip, but when asked how he would feel in that situation, he didn't hold back. He described the emotional weight of such a violation, how it would create distrust so deep that it would shake any lawyer to their core. He admitted bluntly, if a client ever recorded him without his knowledge, he'd be furious. Not annoyed, not disappointed. Furious. Because it's not just about betrayal, it's about the integrity of the entire legal process. Meanwhile, viewers began noticing something else disturbing about the footage. Diddy wasn't just venting. He sounded overwhelmed, almost paranoid, firing off complaints about how the legal teams weren't working together, how the pressure felt impossible, and how everything was spiraling. He kept repeating the idea that they were losing, even though the lawyer he was speaking to eventually helped him win. That irony hit hard. The same man Diddy recorded, the same man he didn't trust fully, is the one who saved him from a catastrophic legal defeat. And that's what made this revelation so painful for the lawyer, for the legal community, and even for fans who once saw Diddy as untouchable. Because the secret recording exposed something deeper than a bad decision. It revealed a mindset consumed with surveillance, a mindset that didn't trust even his closest allies, a mindset that believed preserving his image mattered more than protecting his relationships. And once that door was opened, people started questioning everything else. How many other recordings exist? How many conversations did Diddy document without permission? And what did he plan to do with all of that footage? Those questions spread like wildfire. 50 Cent fueled the flames by hinting there was more footage, possibly more damaging, more revealing, and more dangerous to Diddy's legacy than anyone imagined. And whether true or not, one thing became clear. The documentary exposed only the tip of the iceberg, but the deepest cut of all came when the public realized the recording was Diddy's worst mistake, What happened after the tape leaked nearly destroyed the people closest to him. Part 4 uncovers the fallout no one saw coming. When the secret recording finally surfaced in the Netflix documentary, the world expected Diddy to be angry. What no one expected was how far-reaching the fallout would become, affecting not just him, but the very people who had stood beside him for years. Because this moment didn't just expose a private conversation, it exposed the emotional damage and broken trust that had been building behind the scenes long before the camera ever rolled. The public reaction was brutal. Legal experts called it a catastrophic breach of ethics. Fans were stunned that Diddy would betray someone who protected him. Even people who once defended him began stepping back, realizing this wasn't the behavior of a man loyal to his circle. This was the behavior of a man who had grown so obsessed with controlling his narrative that he had forgotten the value of real human relationships. Behind the scenes, those close to the situation described a far more painful reality. Diddy's legal team felt blindsided. Lawyers who once trusted him now questioned every meeting, every conversation, every moment spent strategizing on his behalf. Some felt humiliated, others felt disrespected, and nearly all agreed that something like this was deeply damaging to the integrity of their work. Imagine fighting for someone publicly, defending their reputation, working around the clock to keep them out of prison, only to discover later that the person you were protecting had been recording you without consent. That shock alone is enough to fracture even the strongest working partnership. But the emotional damage didn't end there. As the documentary spread across social media, people began targeting not just Diddy, but the attorney in the recorded clip as well. Viewers dissected his words, analyzing every detail, twisting his statements into theories about the case. The man who had once been praised for his legal skill now found himself trending online not for his accomplishments, but for a moment he never consented to being captured in. In the tragic part, he won the case for Diddy. He helped keep him out of a devastating legal outcome. He protected him when the stakes were at their highest. Yet this was the thank you he received: his voice, his work, his private conversations displayed for millions to judge. Even Mark Geragos, who has represented Diddy in the past and whose daughter worked on the same legal team, said the situation would drive any lawyer out of their head. He explained that discovering you were secretly recorded could create paranoia, anxiety, and a long-term fear of being exploited by your own client. For people who operate in high-profile legal battles, trust isn't optional, it's the foundation. And once shattered, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. Meanwhile, Diddy kept insisting the footage wasn't authorized. He blamed the videographer, claimed ownership, argued copyright issues, and insisted the documentary shouldn't have used it. But none of those arguments addressed the real wound, the betrayal. Because the truth was simple, and the public understood it immediately. It wasn't about ownership. It wasn't about legal rights. It was about what it said about his character. And that realization caused something unexpected: an emotional shift in public opinion. People who once gave Diddy the benefit of the doubt now looked at him with suspicion. Others felt uncomfortable, wondering what the rest of his private vault contained. And yet, the most explosive part was still ahead. Because after the backlash hit, new details emerged about what happened before the footage was ever leaked, details that completely flipped the narrative and exposed the deeper reason why the documentary shook Diddy's world so violently. Long before the Netflix documentary dropped, long before the world heard that explosive recorded call, something was already brewing behind closed doors, something that the people closest to Diddy say was the true reason the footage became so dangerous. And it wasn't just about what was said on camera, it was about what the camera symbolized. That videographer wasn't some random employee. He was someone Diddy trusted to follow him day and night, capturing the highs, the lows, and the moments he never wanted the public to see. Over time, he collected hours of private material, footage that documented Diddy's moods, his conversations, his frustrations, and even his mistakes. It was a personal archive of a man who spent years building his image, carefully curating every piece of the puzzle the world was allowed to see. But the problem was never the existence of the footage. The problem was the control. Those close to the situation say Diddy never had a clear contract. There was no airtight agreement, no formal legal line drawn between what could be used and what couldn't. And without that contract, all the footage, every clip, every angle, every recorded conversation legally belonged to the person behind the camera. And when that footage found its way into 50 Cent's production company, it didn't just embarrass Diddy. It stripped him of control over his own narrative. What made this even more unsettling was the timing. Sources say that in the weeks leading up to Diddy's arrest, there were whispers that some of this private footage might be leveraged, sold, or exposed. Whether those rumors were true or exaggerated didn't matter. The fear alone was enough to shake Diddy's inner circle. They knew how damaging even one clip could be. They knew how much raw material the videographer possessed. And they knew Diddy had spent his entire career fighting to protect his image. So when the recording of his private legal conversation appeared in the documentary, it wasn't just a breach of trust, it was a warning shot. It told the world, there is more. And Diddy no longer controlled any of it. This realization sent shockwaves through his team. Some believed the release of the footage was intentional. Others believed it was revenge. And a few quietly admitted that Diddy's past choices, especially the way he treated those who worked for him, may have played a role in how that footage slipped away. But the public didn't need to know the internal politics to understand the impact. The documentary didn't only expose Diddy's behavior, it exposed the cracks within his empire. It showed viewers a man who recorded people without their knowledge, a man who spoke to his legal team with panic and mistrust, a man whose private world looked nothing like the polished celebrity image he had crafted for decades. And in the end, that's why the footage was so dangerous. Because it didn't show a crime. It didn't show violence. It didn't show scandal. It showed Diddy unfiltered with all his fear, paranoia, and frustration on full display. For a man who built his entire career on confidence, power, and control, that vulnerability was the one thing he never wanted the world to witness. Today, the attorney he recorded continues his work. The videographer remains at the center of speculation, and 50 Cent stands by his documentary, insisting the public deserve to see the truth, not the staged version but the real one. As for Diddy, even from behind prison walls, that lost footage continues to haunt his reputation. Not because it proved anything criminal, but because it revealed something even harder to deny: the collapse of trust, loyalty, and control inside a world he once dominated. And for many watching the documentary, that was the moment they realized. The downfall didn't start with an arrest. It started with a camera.